Okay, so let's start by saluting the shrine. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Dhammaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Sanghaya.
Namo Namah.
Namo
There's a few more coming in. Another seat in the front of the teacher here. You can bring an apple.
Some over here.
Thomas, there's one here.
Stick your hand up if you've got a seat next to you. Or if you've got 2 square inches next to you.
There's one here,
Follow
there's two.
hands.
Yeah, we've got 2 up back here. There's 3 here.
We can always squeeze in another one. Don't be shy.
Hands. Where the spaces are.
Anyway, congratulations everyone, you've managed to squeeze in. Just one. So I hope you're all comfortable. Someone else coming in. Hi there, come in. If you follow the hand, some of them are quite a long way away, but they won't be deceiving you. You probably need to, let it. Okay, so let's begin straight away with meditation. Welcome to those of you online. Really good that you could tune in as well. Welcome if anyone's sitting next door in the reception room. Could be a bit louder, but we're better than last week. Thank you. To the reception room. Thank you. A bit more of a, we'll get there. Next year it's Wembley Stadium. Okay, so as soon as you're ready, get yourself set up so you can sit still. We'll do a short meditation and then I'll say a bit and then we'll do some more meditation. So as soon as you closed your eyes, bringing your attention into your body. And it's not that your attention has been out of your body before or somehow in your head. It's just you haven't really opened up to the body, probably. You haven't brought it into your awareness. So see if you can bring your body sensations into your awareness. And your body will be comfortable or uncomfortable. You might like the sensations of the body or you might not. But you're just going to open up to those sensations, whatever they are. And the simplest place once again to start is the weight of your body on the chair or the cushions. A direct sensation of support. And that is a sensation, it's not a mental image, it's not a thought. And if you can just soften your belly a little bit, more of your weight will drop down through the floor, through into the chair or the cushion. See if you can feel your feet on the floor. Again, often what we call experience is really just a mental image or even a kind of monologue we're telling ourselves, such as feel your feet. And we're trying to get away from that into the direct sensations just now of our feet on the floor. What can we actually feel? So there's the experience of pressure and the backside as you sit on the cushions of the chair. And there's the sensations of the floor. Your knees on the floor if you're sitting on the floor. Your feet. As I say, you can help yourself rest onto the ground by allowing your belly to soften. See if you can let go of your shoulders. And soften your eyes. So that as you sit here, there's a sense of your whole system calming down. Quietening down. The weight of your body dropping through the chair or the cushions. Your belly soft. Your shoulders soft. Your eyes soft. Calming the body, calming the mind. back to the weight of your body on the cushions, your feet on the floor. So sitting comfortably. Yes, so welcome everyone to the final morning of the 21-day meditation challenge. If this is the first time you're here, you've missed it. It's great you're here, really great. Yeah. What we've been doing in this part of the challenge is exploring the preliminary admonition at the start of a sutra that's about the perfection of wisdom, and that all of Buddhism, I've been saying, is either moving towards or expressing the perfection of wisdom. And we've been looking at these 4 lines, which are how you prepare for the arising of the perfection of wisdom. So I'll read them again, and today I think I should actually be able to get to the end of 4 lines. I managed to do 3 words in week 1, I think, but anyway. So it says, call forth as much as you can of love, of respect and of faith. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. Listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas, taught for the weal of the world, for heroic spirits intended. So those are the 4 lines that we've been exploring. So I want to say something about these first 2 lines, and then I'll see how we go for time, and then we'll explore these second 2 lines. Call forth as much as you can of love, of respect and of faith. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. So I wanted to say 2 follow-up remarks from this. I've been focusing on those 2 lines for the last 2 weeks. But the first thing to say is call forth as much as you can of love, of respect and of faith. And as I said, quite often the word respect is translated as devotion rather than respect. Yeah? So basically it's saying call up your sense, your innate sense that life has innate meaning and value. Yeah? You know that to be true, but you, like everybody else, you often forget that that's true. So call that up again. Call up your sense of meaning, of value, of beauty, of goodness, of truth, all those great matters. Call them up. They're there already. Call them up. Yeah. So I think this is really crucial and weirdly difficult for modern people. We moderns or postmoderns have kind of disavowed a lot of this. We've decided that we used to have a worshipful relationship with the world and with the sacred, and science has showed us that we were wrong. That's what we tend to believe. Science hasn't done any such thing, but somehow that's become our kind of assumption that if there are truths to be found, they're out there to be discovered by science. They aren't in our experience to be lived from. Yeah? The assumption is that we used to have these feelings of faith, devotion, respect, a sense of the sacred, and science has showed us we were wrong to feel that. That's not what science has done at all, but somehow that's become our kind of pop modernism, really, that all of us are affected by, to one degree or another, and often very badly affected by, to the point where we really think our historical life, the mere accidents of history and time, are all that our life consists in. Yeah? Buddhism is saying you can't really practice anything really meaningful, especially Buddhism, in a world in which you think that there isn't any love to call up, there isn't any respect or devotion or a sense of the sacred to call up. You simply cannot practice Buddhism in that spirit. People try to, because you can think of Buddhism and meditation as a kind of mind science, and a lot of modern Buddhist teachers have tried to teach Buddhism as a kind of mind science, and there's a value in that, but it's a very limited value, and it's time to sort of move on from that value. There's a whole history to that which I won't sort of bore you with. But I think without this sense of the sacred, by the sacred I mean simply that which cannot be spoken about, that which can never be caught in words, that which never can be commodified or bought and sold or used for personal marketing and so on. That's what the sacred means. Our sense of the loss of the sacred, of meaning and value, has meant that human beings are kind of unmoored. Modern human beings are kind of unmoored. Many people now have no sense of real direction, no sense that life itself has direction, has meaning and purpose, and that your life can articulate that meaning and purpose and direction. Yeah? Human beings, until relatively recently in history, through every different religious tradition, assumed that life was sacred, that you had a sacred bond with not just the natural world but with the cosmos itself, and that you could live that out in your day-to-day life. In fact, your day-to-day life was a living out of that. I think without that, for me, it might be one of the explanations. I'm not choked with emotion, I just have a cold. That's it. I think without that, it might be one of the explanations for why we seem to be seeing in our modern world so much, what can you say, so much, I don't know, so much indignation, so much sense of pressure, so much sort of narrowing into just a willed pressure, so much stress, so much kind of blame and rancor and anger and resentment and bitterness, which seem to be becoming more and more the flavour of modern life, particularly anger, I think. I keep on seeing that more and more, anger, bitterness, blame, a notable lack of humility in modern people. I wonder, I mean, there's lots of modern thinkers talking about this now. I wonder whether it's to do with some foundational thing that we're missing, that we don't have a sense that life has innate meaning and purpose, and therefore our life has a direction. So we end up with this kind of embittered sense that someone has stolen our life, that someone's making it hard for us, that other people are to blame and we're to be exonerated of everything. It seems to be that the modern mode is to blame everyone and feel self-satisfied. It's a terrible place to get to. It's a very, very unhappy place to get to. A sort of notable lack of humility in modern life. Yeah? So this preliminary admonition is first of all saying we need to call forth as much as we can of love, of respect and of faith. In other words, call forth all of those foundational senses of connection with ourselves, with each other, as a community, with the human community, with a sense of love for others, especially those who don't agree with our point of view, love for others across boundaries of race and gender and so on. It's saying that we need to get back to love, respect for people who you feel have got genuine spiritual attainment, or at least you've got something to learn from. All of these kind of old-fashioned human virtues, which certainly post-modernity has kind of ironized away. And all we're left with is this sense, if we're not careful, a sort of bitterness and blame and lack of humility. And nobody will grow from that. That's the tragedy of our modern lives. We're extremely privileged, all of us in this room, everybody watching this. I don't like that word privilege, I prefer lucky, really. We're extremely lucky. We've got, material prosperity undreamt of by most generations, and yet we seem to be so kind of quick to feel slighted, to blame, and so on. I can be like that, and I bet you can be like that. And what this sutra is saying is actually we can't get anywhere from that place. We have to start with calling forth love, compassion, respect, devotion, a sense of being in a meaningful world. Yeah? So that was kind of my gloss on that first line. Yeah, and then the other thing, my gloss on the second line, clear away your Clear away your defilements, which Buddhism puts incredible attention on. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. Buddhism is unremitting in its focus on you and your mental states. What kind of mental state are you in? Are you in a positive mental state? Can you develop that and sustain that? If you're in a negative mental state, you need to get out of that. However good the cause is in your mind. I keep on noticing my friends going into politics, left or the right, and they just end up more and more kind of in negative mental states, it seems to me. I can't really see that that's helping anyone, especially when we then spread negative mental states. But what I was saying in week 2 was that the Buddhist approach to working with negativity, and we're all prone to that to an incredible degree. I think I was saying last week that we're kind of evolved to be highly sensitive to threat, to highly sensitive to anything that threatens us and makes us feel insecure, because that would be a threat to our survival. So we have a deeply inbuilt tendency to notice the negative, to spot, even in a good sunny beautiful morning like this, to spot things that don't go well. I'm talking to my daughter yesterday, she's a typical Gen Zer. Any good thing, we can find a bad thing in it. It's like staggering. And that whole generation, lovely people, don't get me wrong, with a great sense of fashion, not like my generation. Anyway, but it's weird, like any sum you can end up with 0. However good you start up with, you end up with 0. Yeah? So the primary Buddhist approach to working with mental states is to cultivate positive mental states. Once you're in a negative mental state, it's quite difficult to get out of it. Negative mental states are like lobster pots. They're easy to get into and difficult to get out of. As soon as you're in a negative mental state, if you're not careful, you think, oh God, I'm in that mood again. Why am I in that mood? Who's to blame? I'm always like this. Life is rubbish. You just get more and more inside that lobster pot. It's very difficult to get out of them. We do need to work to get out of them. A lot of Buddhism is actually addressed to getting out of negative mental states and seeing, first of all, that they are negative mental states. They're not to do with your uni, they're not to do with your teacher, they're not to do with your mother, they're not to do with your past and your trauma, they're not to do with history. But the Buddha would say they're to do with you. Yeah? In that way, his kind of ethical sense is a bit like Adler, who's a contemporary of Freud, who really emphasized that you need to be brave, basically. He said, your life is your responsibility, you just lack courage. Adler was much less touchy-feely than the others. So the Buddha's approach is a bit more like that what mental state are you in? Is that a good one or a bad one? Okay, if you've got a bad mental state, get rid of it. If you've got a good mental state, you need to maintain and develop it. Yeah? It's very unforgiving in that way. If you want something softer and more feely, try... Netflix? Anyway, so the Buddhist approach to that is that it's very difficult to work with negative mental states, and most of what we do in most of our life needs to be protecting our mind by dwelling in the positive, actually looking for the positive. This doesn't mean not noticing the negative and not being critically minded. As I've gone on and by in this class, lots of people need to be more critically minded. In a way, you need to think better, not kind of ditch your thinking. That's a nightmare where people try to ditch their thinking. You need to think better, clearer, in a sense, more critically in the full sense of appreciative critically. Yeah? But to protect your mind, I need to keep on dwelling in and cultivating and nourishing the positive. I use this woodworking analogy, which is, I think, a traditional one, because it's certainly not mine, having done no woodwork in my life. But the way to get out a rotten piece of dowel from a joint is to knock in a new piece of dowel. Yeah, you can't dig out that rotten bit of dowel, and clean it all out. That can be the tendency, and that makes you over-focus on the negative if you're not careful. Our working with the negative, if we're not careful, creates more negative. Yeah? Our working with our negative self-talk, so many people have it. If you're not careful, you then have negative self-talk about your negative self-talk. Yeah? And you just go on and on in spirals like that, where you can't get out. So you need to knock in something positive. You need to knock in a clean dowel that knocks out the negative. That's the basic Buddhist approach to negative states of mind. And by negative states of mind, we mean it in the macro sense of your life, and in the micro sense of walking from here to the tube and rehearsing a criticism, going through a resentment, feeling critical of somebody you're walking past, getting into, I thought I went to that Buddhist class and I thought I'd be happy and I'm not. It's a sunny day and my life's already ruined. And he didn't make enough jokes, seemed a nice guy, but not enough gags, I've just been noticing very, very much in my own life that how much moment to moment, as consciousness arises moment to moment, I have such an attraction to the negative, yeah, and I am not alone in that. I have such an attraction. You can be having a shower, which is basically your own private jacuzzi, whilst criticising, your junior school teacher about 40 years before, It's nuts. But it's very, very difficult for human beings not to just keep on drawing forward a negative state of mind. Yeah. So the prime way in Buddhism to work with that is to call forth as much as you can of love, respect and faith. It's how the sutra puts it in one line. Yeah, it means much more than that. There is another way of working with negative mental states, because this is one of the great matters in all of our lives, whether you're a Buddhist or not, whether you think of yourself as spiritual or not. I will need to work with negative mental states. The other way that Buddhism puts a lot of value on is confessing your negative mental states. Yeah. Actually, quite clearly and cogently and fully confessing the things that you've done wrong. Yeah? So Buddhism really values confession, apology, forgiveness, making amends, all those kind of things. Yeah? When you come along to the London Buddhist Centre, you usually get taught meditation first. We could start teaching confession first. That would be a longer class. We finish around midnight, I think, and then say we better come back tomorrow. We could start with, ding, confession. So in this tradition, in the Triratna Buddhist order, we bring in confession, particularly when you ask for ordination. When you ask for ordination, that means that you've decided from your own free will that you are a Buddhist and you want to dedicate your life to Buddhism, and therefore you're going to confess all your shortcomings, not just now, but throughout the whole life. So very soon I'm going to go off with Patrick to ordain him in a valley in Spain, and we're going to have an afternoon together where I just sit and listen, and he goes through his whole life and tells me all the things he needs to confess. Yeah? The reason why that's so important is that it has a purifying effect on your mind. All of us, if we're not careful, are stymied by regrets and sort of uneasy conscience. Often you don't notice them until something sort of touches them again and they light up for you. I regret saying that, I regret saying this. Actually, it's one of the things we don't put on our posters for retreats. One of the experiences I have most on retreat, particularly solitary retreats, particularly longer ones, is suddenly I'll remember something I did and really feel a kind of sting of regret. Particularly, actually, weirdly, particularly seemingly small things, which at the time I didn't. I was just in the shower this morning, remembering how I was getting on a train with my partner at the time, and I was so anxious about getting on time. I got on and left him on the station, and he had to get the next train. At the time, I was like, "Oh my God!" But we were late. It was your fault. Da, da, da. I blamed it on him. He was late. He's always late. He always thinks that trains are going to wait for him. I always think I'll probably go an hour early if I'm getting in them. I'm a pessimist. He's an optimist. But just this morning, it flashed back that moment, and I could really see I was just very neurotically anxious. That's what was going on. Nothing to do with him being late. Nothing to do with him being an optimist and me a pessimist. I was just neurotically anxious. I was 27 or something, but still. And that's what often happens when you go deeper in life. I haven't ever talked about this, I don't think, but anyway, at least in this context, when you go deeper in life, what deeper means is you suddenly remember all these things, which at the time you rationalised and justified, and thought were even good things. As you grow, your sense of regret in the positive sense. Interestingly, shame in Buddhism is a positive mental event, not a negative one. Shame in Buddhism means hri, which comes from the root form, which means to blush. It's when you remember with that pained sense of conscience that you've done something that has broken your self-respect. You know that moment when you think, I can't believe I did that. In modern life, we have nothing we can do with that. You just have to kind of suck it up, as they say nowadays. In Buddhism, there's a lot of emphasis on the value of confessing. The reason why you only do that when you ask for ordination is because it suggests a very deep seriousness about trying to change yourself, and you need to confess to people who understand what you're trying to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend confessing to people who don't understand what you're trying to do. Otherwise, they're like, this is weird. Or they go, actually, I can think of some other things you've done, which you'll find is unhelpful. Yeah? So all of this is really a crucial preparation for the perfection of wisdom. You're trying to feel in touch with a sense of devotion and faith, or a sense of the sacred, that life itself has the sacred within it, the unnameable, the unspeakable, that's something that can't be commodified and turned into self-marketing, and that's precious to you, and it gives your life meaning and orientation. And then you have this real sense of trying to flourish the positive, so that you become a force for good in the world, a force of warmth, of love, of generosity, of fellow feeling, of bravery, of truthfulness, that you're dependable, that you do what you say, that you have integrity, you can apologize, you can confess your shortcomings, you're not hiding those and blaming others. In other words, you cultivate a certain humility to life and a certain love to others. Those are the indispensable bases on which the perfection of wisdom can arise. Otherwise, your mind is simply too shallow and hard. It's like your mind needs to be needs to be cultured. The original sense of culture means from cultivate, like how you cultivate a field. You turn it all over so that things can grow. Most of the issue for most of us is our mind is too hard. Yeah? So that the perfection of wisdom can be raining down upon it. In fact, it's raining down upon us all the time, but our mind is too hard. Nothing can grow from it. Yeah. So I want to, in the second half, come back to that this whole matter of the perfection of wisdom. I just wanted to re-emphasize those important bases. So let's meditate again, and I'm going to read a perfection of wisdom sutra at the end of it, a much shorter one than the one we're exploring. Otherwise we'd be here for a long time. Again, as soon as you've closed your eyes, opening up to the body sense. And this time I want to draw in a more Vipassana-like reflection, a more insight-like reflection. So, opening up to your body, really feeling your body sitting here now. But having this background sense, almost a recollection, a reflection, that the body is not mine. It doesn't belong to me. I didn't make my body. My body has come into being without me. I've borrowed it from the natural world. I've borrowed it from nature. And eventually I'm going to have to give it back. So I've just got it on loan at the moment. It's not mine, it's not me, it's not who I am. So really feeling your legs, the whole of your legs, from the pelvis all the way down to your toes. See if you can really inhabit your legs. Just having this, again, that reflection that I can feel my legs directly, without a mental image, without a story I'm telling. But my legs are not me, they're not mine. I didn't create them. I can feel them directly. I live through them. They don't belong to me. They're not me. They're not mine. They're not myself. And then feeling the whole extent of your arms. Really inhabiting the sensations in your arms. Appreciating them. But my arms are not me. They're not mine. They're not myself. I experience them, I live through them. They don't belong to me. Just keep opening up to the physical sensations, moving your mind right up to physical sensations, experiencing them as vividly and directly as you can. And just reminding yourself that those sensations don't belong to me. I didn't create them. I didn't make them. They're the sensations of the natural world, which I borrowed from the natural world, and will need to give back. That's just my human situation. So see if you can do that for a few moments. E Maho, Dharma wondrous strange, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. Within the birthless, all things take their birth, yet in that birth, nothing is born. E Maho, Dharma wondrous strange, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. Within the ceaseless, all things cease to be. Yet in that ceasing, nothing ceases. Maho, Dharma wondrous strange, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. Within the non-abiding, all abides, yet thus abiding, there abideth naught. Maho, Dharma wondrous strange, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. In non-perception, everything is perceived, yet this perceiving is quite perceptionless. Maho, Dharma wondrous strange, profoundest mystery of the perfect ones. In the unmoving, all things come and go. Yet in that movement, nothing ever moves. Okay, so we'll have a cup of tea in a minute, and then after tea I want to talk about the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas for heroic beings intended, to conclude these 4 lines. The protocol for having cups of tea, which in this time is rather a thing, is, well, in a moment that half of the room will go first, and if you can sort of go straight round to the small shrine room, which is behind here, and then I'll give the cue for the next movement, and then we'll all move seamlessly about in a kind of heaven on earth. Okay, so this side first, please. So let's start with another meditation as people come in. So get yourself set up in your meditation posture. So if you're coming in, we're going to go straight into meditation again. Or not. Just ignore me, that's fine. So let's just come in, go straight into meditation. So come in and then we'll go, so sit up in your meditation posture and we'll start meditating kind of straight away again. So if you're in the room already, closing your eyes. So as soon as you sit up in your cushions, closing your eyes, bringing your attention into your body, you can include the sound of everybody coming in, that's all right. Those of you coming in, we're going to go straight into meditation, so come and join us. And yeah, as soon as you've sat down, closing your eyes, and again opening up to a broader sense of your awareness. We're very often just stuck at a certain level. So closing your eyes, going straight into meditation. With your eyes closed, see if you can open up to more of your experience. So you can tune into all the sounds of people coming in. You don't need to sort of block that out. You can tune into your body. Come straight in, come straight in. So those of you coming in, we're going to go straight into meditation. So when you've come in, sit yourself down, get yourself a place, and again, closing your eyes and opening up to this broader sense of your experience. As I say, it's not that we're not in our body, it's just that we don't sort of broaden out very much. We kind of get stuck in our internal narratives, in our thoughts and plans and fantasies. And all we're trying to do just now is open up from that, open up into more experience, more life. And again, really tuning into the weight of your body on the chair or the cushion. In a way, that's the most straightforward sensation, the sort of loudest sensation. So you can notice that. You can notice your feet on the floor. And you can consciously encourage your body to let go. We tend to be kind of gripping on our body, holding ourselves, bracing ourselves. And we do that habitually without noticing. So see if you can not grip onto yourself. You don't actually have to do that. You can just imagine letting go. Letting the weight drop down through the floor, through the chair, through the cushions. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you notice your body a bit more, you're already meditating. Meditation isn't some sort of specialized technique. It's you in your awareness, your experience suffused with awareness. Opening up to your body sense. Embracing how the body feels just now, even if you find it uncomfortable. Softening your eyes again. Softening your shoulders. And your belly. And you can just imagine your whole system, your body, your mind, even your kind of nervous system, all of that calming down, quietening down. Feeling the weight of your body on the cushions or the chair. Really feeling the support of the cushions or the chair. Okay, good. So sitting comfortably, or as comfortably as you can manage. Yes. So just a bit of word about next steps. So, we've been just looking at these 4 lines from an ancient Perfection of Wisdom text, and even that, there's more and more to say about that. So, the main thing that I assume that you're going to do is just carry on I mean, when I first came to the London Buddhist Centre, I knew the first day I cycled from my squat in Brixton, long story, but let's not go there, when I was 25, and I was taught the mindfulness of breathing, and I knew I was a Buddhist, I knew I'd always been a Buddhist, I knew I always would be. Yeah? It seemed to me quite self-evident that Buddhism was the truth of life, and I assumed that everybody would see that. It wasn't like a big experience I had, an emotional experience or a spiritual experience. It was a simple experience of, oh yeah, that's what life is for. Yeah. So I basically carried on, and here I am now, sort of nearly 40 years later. Yeah. That's what I'm assuming that you're going to do. How does that feel? And then you'll be leading the seminar in whatever it is, sometime in the future. Anyway, so let's just say 40 years, but let's cut it down to a bit more manageable. So what I suggest is you join me on the next course, which is Life with Full Attention, based on a book that I wrote on mindfulness called Life with Full Attention. And it's an 8-week course. It starts on February the 4th. And it's very much an exploration of mindfulness from the Buddhist point of view, which is a perfection of wisdom point of view. Yeah. Again, the whole of mindfulness, like the whole of Buddhism, is about opening up to the perfection of wisdom. It's not, it's not some sort of, it's got a self-care element, but it's not really about that. It's not really focusing on that, yeah? It's really about insight into the nature of things. So I'll be leading that from the 4th of February, so, we could all just do that and then we could stay together. I mean, mostly the thing about going on a course, it just means you're more likely to keep coming every week. I'm more likely to keep coming every week. And you will be as well, yeah. The only difference is I don't get to pay. So yeah, do come on that. Next Saturday, the Saturday class continues as usual, so you can just keep coming Saturday morning. So, that couldn't be easier. And yes, do give to help this create a world of generosity. We are trying. I still think we've got a way to go here at the centre, but we're trying to create a world in which the basic attitude of everyone is generosity. That I just come down and teach. I don't get any money for teaching. It would be wrong to do so. It would be un-Buddhist to do so. So I just come down on my Saturday morning, get an emergency coffee from next door, and we just want this world in which it's just an expression of giving, not an expression of commodity. Yeah, the Dharma isn't a commodity that I should be paid for delivering and that you should pay for. But yeah, we want to create a world in which generosity is the keynote, not a sub-note. Yeah. So yeah, do give. That'd be great. Okay, adverts over. So let's. Good, isn't it? So let's go to these last two lines. Listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas, taught for the weal of the world, for heroic beings intended. When it says taught for the weal of the world, it's a kind of archaic way of simply saying taught for the good of everyone. Yeah, you probably got that from the sentence, but it just means taught for the benefit of everyone. Yeah, in other words, it's not for the benefit of me. It's not so I get enlightened. It's so everybody gets enlightened. That's why you teach the Dharma. It's for the good of. In tradition, it's called the many people, which is rather nice, isn't it? It's for the good of the many people. Taught for the weal of the world, for heroic spirits intended. So I want to particularly focus in this last bit of teaching on the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas. It's very striking that they're described as gentle, and for heroic spirits intended. So yeah, the wisdom is configured here as being gentle, the gentle Buddhas, the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas. Wisdom isn't always taught like that by any means. It's very much emphasised in these first four lines. Wisdom in Buddhism is taught in, you can imagine, a whole multitude of ways. So, for instance, an early way of talking of wisdom as being like the lion's roar. That a lion's roar in the jungle silences all the other creatures. When you get to the truth is experienced like a lion's roar. That roar of truth everything else becomes silent in that lion's roar. They even describe the Buddha's silence as being like a lion's roar. He would just be silent in a way that is unreachable by nearly all human beings. A kind of silence of mind that we would find actually frightening. You have never met a person whose mind is completely silent, who has no propunction, no kind of mental proliferation of any kind. Traditionally speaking, the Buddha had no views. In other words, he didn't come into experience with the kind of assumptions and expectations and theories and even Buddhist theories. He had no view. He just met experience directly, and wisdom would arise from that. And his silence, was said to be like the lion's roar, which silenced the whole of the jungle. But here, the wisdom is configured as the gentle Buddhas. There's lots of ways of reading that, I think, but the way I want to take this morning is what it emphasizes is that perfection of wisdom, wisdom itself, which, remember, wisdom isn't a thing you can say, it's not a metaphysical statement, it's not a philosophic, it's not a philosophy. We still in the West tend to think of wisdom as to do with, pipe smoking, cravat wearing scholars or something, who are very wise. The image for wisdom in Buddhism is a 16-year-old prince or princess is the image for wisdom in the Buddhist tradition. So it's not to do with thought as opposed to feeling. It's not to do with philosophical sort of difficulty as opposed to simplicity of experience. It's something quite other. It's best to leave it untranslated as prajna. The Japanese called it the dark wisdom. Perfection of wisdom was the dark wisdom. In other words, the wisdom you can't see with your everyday sight, the dark wisdom. And I like that metaphor because it's more direct, it's more poetic. So what you've got here is listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas. And I think what that's getting at is that any experience of wisdom, any sense of wisdom, and human beings always have little tiny flashes of it. We're not completely ignorant, interestingly. Even when you look at the Buddha figure, none of us, including myself, we don't really know what that Buddha figure represents, but we have a sort of sense of it. It's not that we're completely blind to it. We have some sense of something called wisdom. But wisdom, however you experience it, always comes in from the side. It's a bit of the nature of imaginative experience, true imaginative experience. It can't be willed. I think that's where I'm going with this metaphor of the gentle Buddhas. You can't be willed. The Buddhas are not some great orators telling the world what is truth. There's something unwilled, something that comes in from the side, traditionally something even slightly playful, something that you didn't expect, something that you can't plan for, something you can't make happen. I think that's the metaphor that the gentle Buddhas here is going for. This quiet voice that you often don't notice, that you often don't attend to, that's usually sort of deafened by the traffic in our life, as it were, the psychic and actual traffic of our life. Underneath it, there's this gentle voice of perfect wisdom, but we don't listen to it. We can't hear it in the din of our lives, in the complexity of our lives. We can't, for instance, ever hear it in a negative mental state. Negative mental states sort of defend you from wisdom in the negative sense. They prevent wisdom coming through. Although actually, sometimes you can make a jump from a negative mental state to wisdom because just for the sheer frustration of being in a negative state of mind. So what the gentle Buddhas is getting at is you can't get wisdom. The path of Buddhism isn't a path like the path from here to Sainsbury's where you just get closer and closer and then you're in Sainsbury's. There's a kind of closer and closer And you can never get, it's only a metaphor, the path, it's a vital metaphor, but you can never actually, the path doesn't lead to the goal. It's not like that. You practice the path of Buddhism, and most of Buddhism is the path, and you open up, by practicing the path, you become more emotionally attuned, more sensitive, more imaginative, more courageous, more clear-headed. You can think more clearly and more deeply and more critically. You're more compassionate to others. You have this ongoing and deepening sense of humility, of that you don't know things, that you don't have things, that you're not in charge, that you may not, there's everything to learn. All of that sort of makes our psyche more and more kind of attuned to things. And then wisdom comes from the least likely place. Yeah, it really does. It comes in always from the side. It comes in when you least expect it, when you didn't prepare for it. And it always has the potential to come in, like now and now and now, on your way home. We're even doing sound effects this morning. Oh my God, we could do like a whole film, like a wisdom film. You know, there's a blue sky appearing. Thank you for that. I'll give you a tenner later. Yeah, so wisdom is like a kind of enchantment. It's not something you can make happen. It's the door to the secret garden that you can never find again when you try to look for it. It suddenly appears. But every moment it can appear. Tiny story, I better not go on about it because time is moving on, but a few years ago now I went to see the Meister Singers with Jan Archer at the English National Opera. I'd never heard that opera before. It's a comedy, and if you know Wagner's music, that was a bad idea. And I remember being with him, watching it. We were up in the garden somewhere, snucked away in the cheap seats. And I remember listening to it and thinking, this is nuts. And you're thinking, how long is this going on for? And the answer is a long time. And we listened to the first act. I'd never heard it before, nor had Jan Archer. And we were saying, what's the big deal about this opera? It's supposed to be one of the greatest operas ever written. Really? What's the big deal? It's just nuts. And then the second act, we got back and said, okay, it'll be better. It's going to be better. It's going to get there. It's going to get there. Second act was a bit less nuts, but basically nuts. I just thought this is just silly. I just couldn't relate to the music. I really couldn't relate to it. I couldn't see what the fuss was about. And Jan Archer and I, we were chatting, having a laugh about it as we, prone to do so. And then the music started for Act 3, and my experience was like getting into a lift and going down 10 floors straight away. I couldn't believe, I would never have anticipated it. I was suddenly like in this other world, which the music and me were sort of, we were together in this dark other world of the music of the beginning of Act 3. It literally was like getting into a lift and just going right the way down. And then what happens in Meister Singers is about the master song, and the sort of drama, I won't go on about it, but he basically comes up with this song, and somebody writes it on a piece of paper. It's, only Wagner could do this, set you up to hear this master song, and then actually write a master song, which you hear it and you think, it's like sunlight shining into it. This was my experience, like utterly beautiful music, just this tenor singing this incredible verse of song. And in this production, I think the baritone writes down what he says, yeah? And then he says, we need another verse, so he sings another verse. And then in this production, he pinned this bit of paper where he'd written the song onto this line so that the ink dried. And then this famous, I later discovered famous quintet where they were all singing about this artwork, basically, which is now just, 4 verses written on ink on a tiny bit of paper. And in this production, this quintet is quite, I think, some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard. And as they were singing in this quintet, which is, again, I was completely in this other world, and this little square of paper just went higher and higher. It obviously somehow did this thing where they simply pull the each end of the thread, and this piece of paper went higher and higher in the stage, and the whole stage went dark, and they just lit this square piece of paper. So you had this dark stage with these 5 singers singing what I felt at that moment to be the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard, and this one little oblong of white paper representing the transcendental object, the transcendental art object. And I just sat there and I wept and wept and wept, luckily silently. I just felt, it felt like there was truth. There it was, straight in front of me. And I wept for feeling, my feeling is quite weird, difficult to sort of even communicate even after this time, is that I'd got lost. I just got terribly lost from the truth. This was so obviously who I really was. This music somehow was so obviously who I really was, and I just sort of got lost from it. I got like terribly lost and upset by being lost. And suddenly it was like a traveller suddenly seeing a light on in the window of home. That's how it felt. And this huge kind of sense of relief and disburdening, and I just sat there weeping and weeping and weeping through all this music. And I left the opera house in a kind of ecstasy which lasted for ages. And the only reason I'm telling that story is that I would never have known that would happen. Literally, I was just thinking that, I'm not in this at all. Now that's just one tiny experience, but the perfection of wisdom is like that. That isn't the perfection of wisdom because it keeps going higher and higher than that. But life has within it these kind of white objects, as it were, of transcendental reality. And that is there all the time, and we keep on missing it. Yeah? And it always surprises you. It's never what you expect. I remember a friend of mine just sitting in his room in uni and watching a plane travelling across the window going down to land, and he suddenly went out of time, he said, and experienced a sort of timeless moment, and then back in time again. All human beings have had these experiences through time. Recently I was reading a biography of Tom Gunn, the English poet, English-American poet, and he had one when he was at school, when he was walking to a bus, where suddenly he felt sort of like the whole world was in him and living through him. It's a kind of incredible experience of truth, of profundity and so on. And then of course these experiences close, they close and you're left in ordinary consciousness again. But those experiences are a taste of perfect wisdom. They're a taste of the transcendental. What Buddhism is about, having more and more of those tastes and living in accordance so that those you give your life to that, so that can arise in your life more and more. You can't will it. I've been practicing now for 40 years, and I can't make the transcendental wisdom appear to me, but I can be more and more open to it. I can live in accordance with my vision, if you see what I mean. That's what Buddhism is about, is discovering the vision of life, the truth of life, and then living by it. And that life of living in accordance with that vision, this text is saying, is for heroic beings intended, heroic spirits intended. When you experience even a tiny bit, touch of it in that evening, it was like something, such a salve to me. Like I'd been wounded and I was healed. It was like I'd been lost and I was not lost anymore. And it felt like my kind of birthright, to use that very, very metaphorically, where I always meant to be, who I really was. And when you touch that, you want everybody to experience it. And, according to Buddhism, that's what the Buddha is. He's living in that experience all the time. That's what Buddhahood really is. But living by that, living in accordance with that, living in order to open up to that, isn't for the faint-hearted. Yeah, it's for heroic spirits. Yeah, it's weird because Westernized Buddhism sounds like something, sort of a sort of mindful moment whilst you're doing your shopping or something. It's become this sort of anodyne, trivialized thing in the Westernized world, but it's traditionally for the heroic spirit's intended. It's for people who are really serious about life in the best sense, not in a po-faced sense, and who want to serve a vision, and so that vision might or might not reveal itself to you. Like, I'm going on a retreat later in the year for 3 months. All I know about that is I'm more likely to experience perfect vision arising in a moment or a milli-moment or a micro-moment than I am here in London. That's why I go on retreat. That's why you should be going on retreat. Most of it, we have such bad conditions to experience the depth of life that we think there isn't any depth to life. It's so tragic. It's not that we are suffering that badly, it's just that we're missing out on so much. That's what's really tragic. Yeah. So it's for heroic spirits intended. And I think one way I want to sort of finish with this about this is that how I take that to mean, or at least how I might teach it just now, because I think that's always the case. One needs to be braver. One needs to be more courageous, more open, less sure, more humble, more compassionate as one practices, not less so. But all of that really, from a very traditional Buddhist sense, is based on commitment. That's what heroic spirits intended mean, for people who want to commit themselves. Yeah? That this listening, a very modern gloss on this verse would be opening up to the perfection of the wisdom taught for the well-being of all people is for those who want to commit to it. You won't get to experience the true nature of things unless you really commit to a whole life of practice. Now, actually, you can have touches of wisdom. Lots of people do. I was reading an excerpt from, anyway, I can't remember now, William James, Varieties of Religious Experience, one of the very, 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 very important texts, which is basically him writing down all these people he meets, from policemen to whatever, about their religious experiences, Varieties of Religious Experience, I think it's called. And that what you get is lots of people having these moments. And you've got, you could go on YouTube and you'll see lots of people having those experiences. If you're not careful, you then try to commodify them and teach them and get a following about them, which actually will vitiate them. The perfection of wisdom is a bit like the muse. The muse doesn't like it if you try and make money out of her. She really doesn't like it. She's like really iffy about that. She doesn't like to be turned into any kind of utility. As soon as you try and write a bestseller, you cannot write. The muse is a kind of prefiguration almost of the perfection of wisdom, which is even more like that. Yeah. So you can have moments of it, and people do have moments of it now and across the world and in every religion and non-religion. But what Buddhism is about committing yourself to live in a certain way in which that vision is more likely to arise, and in which you can then communicate it to others. Yeah, that's really what Buddhism is. So, really, what's being said here is for heroic spirits intended. It's for people who commit themselves. Yeah, the Buddhist life is a committed life. That's really what it is. And in this tradition, it's different in different traditions, but in this tradition, commitment is symbolised, full commitment is symbolised by ordination. You see those of us with these white cases. The caser is actually an abbreviated robe. It's traditionally when you were ordained, your preceptor would hand you your robes to go and put on, having shaved your head and so on, and they'd hang the belt of your robes around your neck. Yeah? So this is basically a belt. You can sort of see that it's a belt. They just hang the belt of your robe around your neck. Yeah, that would what the caser is like an abbreviated robe. It's our robe effectively. It's Zen Buddhists often wear cases as well. But ordination means full commitment to a life that's opening to the truth. Yeah, and I'm not sure whether I'd recommend that or not. It's a life for heroic beings intended. It's actually more of a challenging life rather than an easier life. People think that I'm now part of this sort of spiritual community and everyone's bending over themselves to support me and so forth. It's not quite like that. My metaphor for it recently was, looking back at my life, it feels like so much of my life was like a pop song. Predictable, banal, frankly. It could be a torch song, could be a love song, could be a I Hate the World song, could be punk, could be garage, my contemporary, could be hip hop, possibly. What?
Wagnerians.
Yes, the Wagnerian, thank you. And my life now is much more like a symphony. Most of our lives, we live at the level of a kind of pop song. Really predictable. We go through the same social manoeuvres once again. We tell the same stories. We live like we're in a pop song often enough. Yeah, and I did, and I still do at times. I can tell you. But more now, particularly since I committed myself to Buddhism, my life is more like a symphony, with tragic parts, with wonderful parts, uplifting parts, comic parts. But it's a much bigger and richer sound. Whether that makes my life happier in that trivial modern sense, I don't know. It sort of does, and it's sort of beside the point. It's much more than that. This whole thing about does it make us happier or not, it's terribly narrow, it's terribly late modern kind of preoccupation. What I wanted, I think, when I first came here 40 years ago is more life, more sound, more richness, more multi-layered, a bigger canvas, as it were. That's really what commitment is commitment to a bigger canvas, to a greater sound, to symphony rather than jingle. So that's where I want to finish. The perfection of wisdom always comes in when you don't expect it. You can't make it happen. It's unwilled. It comes in often enough from the side when you least expect it. The only thing you can do in a traditional Buddhist sense is commit yourself to the truth. As my own teacher said, you commit yourself to finding the truth and then living by it. Yeah? Then living in accordance with the truth. That's what Buddhism is. Finding the truth and then living by it. Okay, so let's do that. Yeah? Let's find the truth and try and live by it just for the next 10 minutes. At least. And then 40 years, but hey. So once again, closing your eyes. And again, this pursuit of wisdom, this opening to the gentle Buddhas, is based on the simple fact of being aware of your body. We're not in some sort of fantasy, we're not in some great bit of philosophy, we're just in experience. Everything will be discovered through experience. And all you need to do is feel the weight of your body resting down on the cushions, on the mat, through the chair. See if you can really open up to the physical sense. comfortable or uncomfortable, if you're in a good mood or not a good mood. You can all just be there. You don't need to try and change it just now. Opening up to your body, to how you feel just now. Opening up to each other in the room. Call forth as much as you can of love, of respect, and of faith. Remove the obstructing defilements and clear away all your taints. Listen to the perfect wisdom of the gentle Buddhas, taught for the weal of the world, for heroic spirits intended. Okay, so that's all we've got time for today. So we can all just pile next door to the mandala and have a flat white and a something. And then let's just stay together for the next 40 years or so and we'll be there. So thanks very much for coming. It's pretty good, really lovely to be here Saturday morning. So see you again. So we don't have to put cushions and mats away, we can just float out to the room.
Do come back if there's any ideas. Maybe in the autumn sometime or whatever.
Yeah. Hello, Liam. How you doing?
Yeah, my mum said that.
Is it? They feel tired. Must have been really good one.
Yeah, exactly.
Lovely, yeah. You got my...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing. Nice to see you. It's always nice to see you.
Very, gets funnier as the years go on.
Good, nice to see you again.
Sorry?
Good, nice to see you again.
That's right.
That's all right. That's all right.
Take it from off again.
Yeah. That makes sense.